My name is Johnny, welcome to Go Johnny Go, the Specialized Mega Project. This project was an entry-level frame that I got, just fell to me for easy money, and I decided to make it into something greater than the sum of its parts. So what have we got then? We have a Specialized pitch frame. It's a 27.5 inch wheel. This is a 2019 model Specialized pitch, and I'm going to build it up using some old parts, some new parts, and just some stuff I had hanging around in the shed. I love the colour of this frame, and it's got just the right amount of bling with that Specialized logo running down the middle. It is very much a used frame. A couple of marks here and there, but overall it's straight and nothing really to write home about on the condition. Build wise, I'm going to be using some 10 speed, mostly Shimano parts, but I will be using a sensor derailleur and shifter which I had hanging around the shed. I like using 10 speed because it keeps down the cost on most builds, plus I had these in the shed doing nothing, so I decided to utilise them. These Sontor forks are really quite nice. They have 130mm of travel and they use a boost spacing on the axle. This should be plenty for this type of hardtail I want to build and the use I want to put it through. These wheels are quite clean. I picked them up second hand and they really are quite nice. One issue that we're going to have to address with this build is that front wheel doesn't have a hub that is boost compatible, so we're going to have to change out that front hub on that wheel, although the back wheel will remain the same and that QR will fit perfectly with the frame as it is. I will be using Shimano 401 hydraulic brakes which are routed through the frame. This should be a nice project, looking at all the parts laid out together like this. Looking at this frame a bit closer up, you can see that I've already fitted a Shimano DR bottom bracket, and I've also fitted a new headstock to accommodate that fork. The fork is a tapered fork, so I had to change out the cups. The original cups only were 1 1/8. This is now 1 1/8 up top and 1 1/5 down the bottom. As you can see, it's much wider. This is a Brand X headset, which I bought brand new. And the seat post is also a Brand X. Quite like the Brand X stuff, it's quite good value for money. Although this nuke-proof seat clamp was the buy of the build at around €5. Absolutely excellent value for a quality part. I'd used this DR bottom bracket on my GT project, although I did swap it out for something that was just aesthetically nicer. Overall, the bearings are perfect on it and could be used no problem again. Moving on to the second-hand wheels I got for this project, they've actually quite nice, quite new Schwalbe Hurricanes on them. Whenever I get a set of second-hand wheels, I like to go through and inspect them, checking things like the spokes and also the torque settings on everything, including the brake discs. As you can see here, they're a centre lock braking system, and these wheels are in very good condition, running completely true. I think I got quite lucky with these wheels for this project, and they came in at a very keen price. Although I've never replaced a hub on any wheel before, I've tightened and replaced the odd spoke, so I'm looking forward to that challenge. Here, this is my torque wrench. I love my torque wrench. I actually have two Tank Tools torque wrenches. It's just setting this to 40 Nm, and I also have a smaller one that will do from about 5 to about 25 Nm. That big one goes all the way up to 150. Here I'm just popping on the cassette. This is a 10-speed cassette with 1142 gearing. This should be enough to get up any hill or down on the trails that I intend to use this bike on. You can see here that I'm just setting this again to the correct torque setting. There's nothing better than knowing that your bike's been put together properly. And for me, that's building it myself from scratch. So a bit of a time lapse here where I'm just popping in the back wheel, just checking everything there and measuring up the fork to where I want to actually cut it. This is a small frame Specialized pitch. I'm not very tall, so a lot will actually be coming off that fork, just to get it to the right size so it fits me perfectly. I'm just fitting the Sensa RX10 derailleur. I had this on another bike previously and it did perform well, although I did change it out for something with a clutch on it. But I'm willing to give it a second try, and it's something that I did have hanging around. This bike runs all its cables internally through the frame, so it is that little bit fiddly to work on. So as I'm fettling with those cables, I better explain what I'm trying to do with this bike. I'm trying to build a bike here on a budget that is going to outperform the actual budget. So I have a budget of around €400 for this bike, and I want something that's going to perform like a bike that costs twice that, or even 3 times that. Something like a Specialized Scout 27.5, which is what I'd really love. But I just can't justify spending €1,500 on something like that. So I'm going to build this bike up as best I can and just try and get something that's comparable to that to run them trails that I really like. I want this bike to be fun and capable, and at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, parts are worth quite a lot just to sell on or to build something else with. That's the mini torque wrench at work. And here's my hacksaw. I'm not very good with a hacksaw, as you're just about to find out. I really should invest in one of those head tube steerer cutters. That is a tool that actually guides the blade to get a nice straight cut, which, as you can see here, I probably need. Although it's not going to hold back this project, I'm just going to file these down till they're correct. Yep, I definitely made a mess of that one. But you will be glad to know that I do have some specialised tools. This is one of my favourite tools. So this is a star nut inserter, and it just inserts the star nut into any fork at the correct depth. I think I like this tool the best because I get to beat it with a lump hammer. You always know that it's seated when the note changes of the actual hammering. With the fork mostly set up, I'm going to install it now. And even though I thought I'd filed it down properly, there was a little bit of an issue trying to get some of the spacers on. But it was nothing that a little bit of brute force and ignorance couldn't match. Although I did have to resort to using the lump hammer again, possibly should have used a rubber hammer instead. But I think I was just probably too lazy to walk and get it, to be honest. And it did the job. That's as much as I could do for that day because I was still waiting on some parts, so I was just having a quick overview of the bike and the work I'd done so far. I used the Shimano Dior crank on this build. I like using these. They have a narrow wide chain set on them, which helps keep the chain secure and not drop as often. Those forks really do look smart. Unfortunately, the only bars I had spare in the shed were a set from an old Kona, so they're not a matching brand, but I don't really mind. I'm going to run them on this project, and if they don't fit, maybe I'll change them out for something else. But for the moment, I'm pretty happy with them. I'm happy overall with how the build has gone so far, but I am awaiting a few parts still. At this stage it's starting to really come together as well. And I wanted to fit a tyre to the rear, just to check the clearance. I had a new set of more mountain bike style tyres to get into this bike. I've always wanted to do this. I've seen Ali Clarkson do this numerous times. He throws a tyre at a wheel and it just goes on magically. Okay, so that didn't work. Maybe if I do it a bit more central it might help. Let's try it again. No, that didn't work either. There's something fishy going on. I'm just going to have to do it the old fashioned way. When changing tyres, I like to try and get them off just using my hands and back on again just using my hands. It's a good skill to have when you're out on the trails, to be honest. So I've just popped this wheel back into the bike. It's a Continental Mountain King and it's a 2.3 inch wide tyre. There's loads of clearance in there, possibly could have gone up to 2.6. I'm quite happy with this for the moment. The type of trails I'm going to be running this on aren't exactly out of this world, but this should suffice, to be honest. I have a matching tyre for the front, so I can't wait to get that fitted, although there's a bit of work to get that wheel ready so it's ready for that front boost hub. Here I am fitting the chain. This chain really did give me a little bit of trouble, and probably more my error than anything else. I mismeasured it and it ended up being slightly short, so I had to add some links in. I think it may have had something to do with the rear derailleur and the length of the actual cage on the hanger, but to be honest, I was kind of stumped. For all the chains that I've measured over the years, this one just didn't seem to go to plan for some reason, and it's rare that that happens. You can see that the derailleur is really stretched there. I did sort it off camera, so it's all good, and now we're just moving on to fitting those hydraulic hoses. As these hoses route through the frame, a little bit fiddly, but we do get there in the end. Shimanos tend to sell brake kits where the right lever actuates the rear wheel. I don't really like this, and I actually swapped them around, which is something you can do, no problem. They are interchangeable, just to let you know if that's something that you're interested in doing. In Ireland we drive on the left hand side of the road, so this makes sense as well. Plus I've driven some motorbikes over the years and I much prefer having the front brake on the right hand side. I find it just gives you better feel, and that's what I'm used to. This rear brake is finished now and all bled up, so it's time to tackle that front wheel. So this is a 27.5 boost fork, which means that it runs 15 circumference by 110 length for the axle. This is an issue because the actual hub that we have on the front wheel won't fit this. So I'm just trying to give you a visual representation of the amount of space and why it won't fit. As you can see there, even if you did make that fit, it wouldn't be very safe. So I bought a boost hub and I'm going to have to replace that. As you can see here, this is a Novatec boost hub, and unfortunately it is running 6-bolt caliper, so we're going to have to change out that disc as well. But the most important thing is, this hub fits absolutely perfectly, as you can see here. Axle in, screws in, no problem, and it spins quite nicely. But this is my first time building a wheel, so wish me luck. I probably should have watched a couple of videos on how to rebuild a wheel, because I did make a disaster of it and ended up having to rebuild the wheel completely twice. Here I'm just trying to get some courage up, so I'm fitting some pedals that were just delivered that day. These are Pro Men pedals from AliExpress. I said I'd give them a whirl and they came in at €10, which I think is an absolute bargain. Most pedals around €10 are plastic pedals, but these are metal and they seem to have good grip on them. They're slightly smaller than usual, but I'm going to try them out. I haven't tackled the front brake yet either, so that's something I want to do now. These calipers are self-bleeding, so they're actually really easy to use. Even if you cut the brake lines and there's a little bit of air in them, they seem to sort themselves out fairly quickly. Now we're onto that wheel rebuild. I'm just loosening off all the spokes with a view to remove them all, and when I get them all removed, I'm going to put them into the new hub. This job was a lot harder than I expected. I ended up having to rebuild this wheel twice. It took about 3 hours to complete the first time, and possibly about 2 hours to complete the second time. So it's not something that I take on lightly again, and it makes me have huge respect for people who build wheels on their own. But I did get it right in the end, and it did run true, which is really important. So you can see here the Novatec hub is in place, and the old hub has been removed, and everything is running okay. So I decided that I'm going to fit the tyre on. This is a Continental Mountain King, so it does match the rear. I really do like matching tyres on a bike. I think it really finishes them off. I also had to get a 6-bolt disc to suit this new front hub. The old ones were centre lock, which is a shame because I actually think that centre lock is a superior system. I'm just pumping up the tyre and I'm going to fit that wheel. This bike is really coming together now, and I'm quite pleased at how it's turning out. I do like to get a bike really well run through and just fettle everything. Things like the levers, seat height, headset especially. I don't like knocking in a headset. It's one of my bugbears, to be honest. And as you can see here, I'm just playing with the headset. I like to get things just right in this regard. This is another job for the torque wrench, to be honest. Yet you can also fit it by feel. No matter how much that you fettle a bike, you can never really get a true sense of how it's going to be on a ride. So generally for the first couple of rides, I will bring along the likes of an Allen key wrench like that one I have in my hand, just so that I can get it right and adjust things on the fly. I find this is the best way to get set up correct. So let's have a closer look through this bike. The Senso RX-10 doesn't look out of place at all, and actually blends in quite well. Shimano crank, always a quality product, those Shimano Diors. I've used them on a couple of builds in the past. The frame really does look well, and those bars don't seem out of place when you're not looking at the logos. That front fork really does look like something special. With 130 mils of travel, it should be able for the trails that I want to bring it on. I'm only using 160mm rotors here, but that's because I'm quite light and quite small, so I don't really need huge braking power a lot of the time. I'm really happy with the braking power on this bike so far, although I can't decide which grips to run, to be honest. Grips are usually the last thing I fit anyway. The lockout works perfectly, as it should for a new fork. I do feel like that I've done this frame justice. Putting on parts, it'll probably get the best out of the frame. The pitch may be an entry level frame, it's actually got some quite nice geometry. That nuke-proof saddle that's on the bike, I really do get on with it, and I find that nuke-proof are actually quite high quality in most of their products. At this stage I better address the question, does this bike actually live up to expectations? Is a budget bike better than the sum of its parts? Well, in this case, I think I've actually succeeded here a little bit. I've been out on this bike a couple of times down the trails, and it's quite capable. But like any bike, as you ride it, you decide that you want more and more from it. So there's a couple of little extra things that I'd like to add to this bike. Some of which I already have, and some which are on the list of maybe that I might do in the future. Just looking at a couple of the still shots, this bike does look quality and probably looks more expensive than it actually was to build. This build came in at €390, but that's before I added a dropper post, which was something that I decided after taking it for a couple of rides would be very nice to have. The best thing about adding a dropper post was that I could actually internally route it. There was a little bit of a faff and a bit of a squeeze, but we got there in the end. This picture is one from the first time I took it out. The bike got quite dirty, and so did I, but that's always a sign of a good day out. And this is how the bike looks now. As you can see, I've added the dropper post. It's the low position, and this is the high position. I really do hope that you enjoyed watching this build, because I definitely had some fun building this thing. Thanks for watching Go Johnny Go, and there's more builds in the pipeline, so maybe like and subscribe. Thank you very much.